With Trump now having won 3 contests in a row, people are starting to play the blame game. Who is to blame for Donald Trump? And there are many people who have their head on the theoretical chopping block for having to explain, how did he get this far? Why hasn't he been stopped? Now, the first, perhaps somewhat understandably, is the sort of gatekeepers for the Republican Party. Reince Priebus, the RNC, those who are, whether you like it or not, they see it as their job to sort of carefully choose who is going to represent the party. They haven't been able to influence the process the way that they normally expect to be able to. Washington Post put out an editorial attacking Reince Priebus. He said it's the worst editorial he's ever read, which is, I guess, a good attack. I don't know. And then he had more to say in his defense vis-a-vis Donald Trump.
That is the stupidest editorial that I've ever seen. That I'm called out for not beating up the frontrunner of the GOP. It's ridiculous. Look.
Well, I mean, they're saying not condemning some of his more vitriolic.
Come on. That's not my job. My job is to put forward the fairest process that we can put forward, to not put my hand on the scale, to allow our delegates to make the choices that they want to make, and then accept the decision that the delegates make. Unlike what's happening on the Democrat side, when they have super delegates in their back pockets and could give a darn what their grassroots is telling the party, that's not how we operate our party on our side.
Okay. Look, he gets to attack the Democrats basically accurately for having the superdelegates, which are anti-democratic.
That's right. And so I'm going to go ahead and shock the world here and say I largely agree with Reince Priebus, perhaps for the first time. And I largely agree with Donald Trump on this issue as well, a guy I obviously can't stand for a number of reasons. Mm-hmm. So let me break down for you. She says, isn't it your job to call him out for being vitriolic? No, it's not. His job is to be the head of the GOP. Then he would have to call out almost every Republican nominee, not just on the presidential side, but every Senate, every House race. And that's what they live and breathe, vitriolic. That's what they do. Yeah. So part of what's annoying to me about not just the interview here, but the Washington Post editorial that started all this, is this idea that this is the first time the Republicans have done this. So it is. Mm-hmm. They said, this is so laughable. They said it's more important to be an American than it is to be, pro GOP here. What are you? First of all, no. The guy's his job is the head of the RNC. His job is to be the head of the Republicans. So he's not going to put the country above his party. Never has. He could say that. Never going to do that. For you to assume that he'd be like, no, you know what? I should lose this election for the Republicans because it would be bad for the country. Well, first of all, that's like your opinion, man.
That would be admirable.
Right. But that's, of course he's not going to do that. If he was going to do that, he should lose every election for the Republicans.
Yeah, because they're terrible.
And which then leads to the second point. Like the Washington Post and the establishment saying like, I do declare, it turns out we found one Republican who is vitriolic and full of hatred. No, the whole party was built on hatred. So now when this Frankenstein they have created is marauding through the village, knocking over everything on in his path, you can't turn around and be like, oh, I'm so surprised that you're calling him Frankenstein. It's based on Dr. Frankenstein who built him. Dr. Frankenstein is Reince Priebus and the rest of the Republican Party. Okay, Trump just happens to be the guy. Yeah. But they built this monster.
Yeah.
So then for the Washington Post to go, oh, tut, I do declare we have a monster on our hands.
I would say if this was a turning point where from now on, they will apply this evenly to all candidates who are terrible for America, then I would be all for it. But I don't think that's what this actually represents.
And the other part of it that I agree with Reince Priebus, obviously in an ironic kind of way, but this part is not even ironic. So the idea that the Washington Post is putting out there that Reince Priebus and the RNC should fix the election somehow, not fix it like vote rigging or anything like that, but should put all their weight on the against Trump on the scales and should make sure Trump loses, is deeply undemocratic.
Yeah, that's
right. And so. I don't agree with Trump, as I've said it a billion times, right? But I'm not a Republican. The Republicans get to vote, and you have to respect the voters' will. and then we'll have a contest with a Democrat and we'll see who wins, okay? But you can't turn around and go, our the establishment has picked a pick, and so hence it shall be that pick and not the one that the voters want. Well, there is that form of government. This ain't it. Our form of government is a democracy where the voters decide, not the establishment.
I disagree in part, depending on what they think he should do to stop it. If he should do some behind-the-scenes thing where he fucks them over, or like, fuck the votes, who cares, we're just giving it to someone else, I don't agree at all about that. And I largely think that it's not his job, it's the media's job, it's every American's job to educate people, to talk about this. That's one of the fundamental assumptions about democracy, is that we're going to be trying to educate each other so that we don't just vote technically without thinking about it, without having any information, but that it's an informed vote that actually benefits us and the country. That's more the media's job. It could be partially his job. Like, after all, the head of the DNC isn't going to allow, like, just because some KKK leader all of a sudden assembles, 51% of the electorate, you can still try to educate people, but you can't rig the system. Do you disagree with me there? You think that it's not even his job? And I'm not saying it's his job too. I'm saying he can, since after all, he's not just the head of the GOP. He is a lifelong Republican who cares about the party, who cares about the direction of the party.
I do disagree. I hear what you're saying, and I think it's incumbent upon other Republicans, including Republican leaders, Mitch McConnell, whoever you want to say, to speak out and say, this is not what we're in favor of, okay?
Just not him because he's the leader. Okay.
The one guy who can't do it is Reince Priebus, who's the head of the RNC and must be neutral. I mean, look at how mad we are at Debbie Wasserman Schultz for not being neutral and for putting her thumb on the scale for Hillary Clinton, which is super obvious. And that's unacceptable.
That's true, although I would say that those are all examples of things where I think they're rigging the system, not simply trying to educate voters. In fact, they're trying to do the opposite of educating voters. She was trying to stop debates from happening.
I know, but if Debbie Wasserman Schultz went on a propaganda campaign to educate the voters about how bad Bernie Sanders is, believe me, we'd be super pissed.
You got me.